Hey, what's up, guys? We got good news and bad news this week. Good news is the MLB playoffs are finally here and are officially underway. The bad news is Eli is sick. Join us on episode 38 of the Final Seconds.
Big as the what? Big as the Super Bowl, but the difference is it's just two guys playing that they did in the studio. Usually send they verses back to me and they.
We are back on the Final Seconds. Eli is sick. I mentioned that in our intro. He's been out for a couple days. I was sick on Monday. He said he just doesn't have energy. I mean, it's been going around. So it's just me this week. It's gonna be a little different. But yeah, the MLB playoffs have started, which is awesome, and we are gonna start off with that. The wild card. A bunch of actually teams have already moved on to the divisional game. But the wild card has started. The Rangers and Rays played earlier today, and they also played yesterday. The Rangers swept them in Tampa Bay, and the Rangers are moving on to the American Divisional Series, and they're playing the Orioles on Saturday, which will be a great series. But the Rays, I kind of was surprised because the Rays, they start out really hot, and they've played pretty well baseball throughout the year, and then they kind of hit a little slump towards the postseason, which is tough for them. But they also they don't have much fan support, which I realized is because on Tuesday, the first day of the wild card is game one. They had the lowest attendance for a playoff game since 1919, which is terrible. It was I want to say it was 18,000, 19,000 fans. Not a lot at all, especially your team's in the playoffs. Now, I mean, I get it. It was a 3:00 first pitch, so it's during the middle of the week and everyone's at work. But I feel like there's still going to be some fans. Like if it was the Cubs or the Phillies or the Dodgers or the Yankees or even the Red Sox, I feel like there's still a packed house for the most part. Maybe still be some seats open, but I feel like it'd be a packed house. But it was a decent series. The Rangers kind of they played well, good baseball. The Rays had a lot of errors in the first game, and then they couldn't score runs. There was a stat that they went 34 innings in the playoffs without scoring runs until they put up one run in today's game. They lost 7-1 still. So I don't know if it's a hitting coach. I didn't watch the Braves a ton this year, so I don't know if they couldn't hit, but they seem to be winning games. So it was an interesting exit for Tampa Bay. But moving on to the Blue Jays and Twins. The Twins won that series, swept them, same thing. The Blue Jays, very kind of similar to the Rays, they couldn't really put up runs. Blue Jays have also had two early exits. Last year they lost the Mariners in the wild card, and this year to the Twins. So I think they'll make some adjustments on that side, or for Toronto. But I'm really happy for the Twins. They'll play the Astros on Saturday, which will be tough. But I'm happy for the Twins. I think people doubted them because me and Eli are very we know the NL Central pretty well, and the AL Central is very similar to the NL Central, with the Twins being on top and then everyone else down the below is kind of brutal. And the Cubs should have made it, but we don't really want to talk about that as Cubs fans. But the Twins, no, I'm happy for them. Their pitching staff is their relief staff is really good. They can finish games. So I'm happy for them. And yeah, it'll be exciting to see them play in Houston. So the third game of the wild card is the Diamondbacks and Brewers. They're actually playing right now. The Diamondbacks won last night. The Brewers were up 3-0. The Diamondbacks came back, made it 3-3, and then they just kind of they kind of ran away with the game. And the D-backs actually didn't have their ace pitchers are actually pitching tonight and tomorrow night if there's a game tomorrow night. So they actually are in a great position. They won, so they're up 1-0, but they are actually winning right now 5-2 over the Brewers. So, and it is in Milwaukee, so it would be a big sweep if they could get it. But yeah, if they win, if they win, which right now I think it's like the 8th inning, so I'm not gonna jinx it. But if they win, they'll play the Braves. Now, if the Brewers won, they'd play the Dodgers because they're higher seed. So it's just, but if the Diamondbacks did win, they'd be playing in Atlanta, which would be tough. And then the Marlins and Phillies are also playing right now. Phillies up on that series 1-0, and they're in the lead right now 3-0 on the Marlins. I think in like the 5th inning. So same thing. If the Diamondbacks won and the Phillies won, then the Phillies would be playing the Dodgers. But the Marlins didn't really look terrible last night. They just they tried to string together everything really late into the game, which you got to kind of do it earlier. It's also tough to win in Philadelphia. Philadelphia might have the best playoff environment this year. I'll say the Braves have a pretty good playoff environment. Dodgers, and I don't know about the Orioles, but it's tough to win in Philadelphia. But I hope the Phillies. I really do like the Phillies. I hope they go back to being the NL champs and going back to the World Series. I think they still got the team. But yeah, they're up, and so are the Diamondbacks. So we were gonna pick the games, but Eli was sick, and so we kind of got to it late. So just had to kind of recap everything. But yeah, we'll move on to college football. We'll recap last week. Couple big games last week. Big one was Oregon State defeated number 19 Oregon State defeated number 10 Utah 21-7. Which was a surprising win. I think me and Eli we were talking about it last week. We were like, we didn't really know what to think of Utah because they beat some ranked teams. They beat Florida, which they were ranked, now they're not. And they did upset an upset a few weeks ago. So we didn't know what to expect of Utah. And then Oregon State last week before Utah, the week before, they played Washington State and lost to Washington State. So I feel like the Pac-12 is it's hard to figure out who's good and who's not. But it was a great win for Oregon State. But it was we didn't really know what to think of Utah, and so but I think Oregon State's a great team. It was a great win for them. They're going to jump up in the rankings. I think Utah will have to figure out where they're going in the next couple of weeks because I know they play USC and Oregon in a few weeks. So those will be tough games. I think they compete against those teams, but if you're losing to Oregon State, I don't know if you're going to be competing against them. But also a big game. It was a big game. Texas kind of took over, but number 3 Texas defeated number 24 Kansas 40-14. The score, Texas rolled over Kansas, but Kansas starting quarterback Daniels, he got injured like the day of the game. He had like a back injury the morning he woke up for the game and was ruled out. So they had like this senior kid. I want to say his name was like Bryson something. I could be wrong. And he wasn't terrible. He made some passes, some plays, but he kept it close in the first half. But he couldn't sustain drives really well. And eventually, Kansas's defense couldn't keep stopping Texas so many times, and when your offense isn't really doing much. So, but I do think Kansas is a good team. I wish Daniels was healthy because it would have been fun to see Daniels play against really good Texas defense, a great competition. But Kansas they'll be back up into the rankings, and they'll win some more games. Texas is good. They got another big game this week, but and it was a great game for Quinn Ewers, but yeah, it was tough to see Daniels not be able to play in that game. So, and then also this was probably the game of the week. Really great game. Number 11 Notre Dame defeated number 17 Duke 21-14. Couple things, mostly about Notre Dame. Duke, I'll start with Duke though. Duke, they're a really good team. They played Notre Dame really well. Leonard, their quarterback, he's a fighter. He competes his butt off. Like I really like him as a QB. If you're Duke, you got to be really happy with him. He's a really, I feel like you can kind of tell on the field. I feel like he's definitely a team oriented guy, and yeah, he makes a bunch of great plays. And they came really close. He on the final drive when they got the ball back, trying to make a drive down the field, he got like injured on like the second play, and he ended up coming on the 10 with crutches on. So I don't know, like I don't know what he's injured with and how bad it was. But on the other side, Notre Dame, couple things. One, their offense is kind of struggling lately. The first couple games before Ohio State, all their games that they played, really nobody. They were putting up a bunch of points, and now those teams really don't have defenses. But then they went to Ohio State or played Ohio State, and they only put up 14. And then they played Duke, and they only put up 21, and they were down at a point, 14-13. So I don't. And Sam Hartman, I think he's a great quarterback. I really like him, but I don't know if like the plays aren't drawn up right or something, because there was all this hype going into the Ohio State game, like Sam Hartman's all this and all that, but like really the Ohio State game was mostly defense, same as the Duke game. I mean, it was a lot of defense, and then Notre Dame, and I will say Notre Dame's got a really tough schedule these 4 weeks. Ohio State, they played a ranked team. Duke, they played a ranked team. This week they play Louisville, who's now ranked, and then they play USC, who's ranked. So they got a tough schedule, but I like Sam Hartman, but they gotta be putting up more points. And I think they missed a field goal. I know Duke missed like 2, but I don't I again, I like Sam Hartman, but it's kind of weird that Notre Dame's not putting up as many points as they should have been, or with the hype around all the fans saying that Sam Hartman's all this and all that. So, and then finally from last week, a really good game. Number 20 Ole Miss defeated number 13 LSU 55-49. There was no defense in this game. It just literally came down to who had the ball last. LSU did get it last, and they had a chance to throw it in the end zone, but it was a terrible play. He just like threw it up there, and it was like a Hail Mary, but it was at like the 25-yard line. It was a really bad play call by the OC. I think he could have definitely gotten a better play drawn up there. But it was a great win for Ole Miss. They have a really tough schedule. They played Bama, they played Tulane, which Tulane is a good team. They'll be ranked again. They are a solid team. They haven't lost since Ole Miss, and they barely lost Ole Miss. But Ole Miss lost to Alabama. I think they played Georgia and Tennessee down the road, so they have a tough schedule. But this LSU win is huge for them. And I think the SEC, it's kind of been like last year. I think it's just gonna be a lot of beating up on each other. But LSU on the other hand, I think there's like, because LSU like into this season, like, and even last year, like there was a lot of hype. Like this team can be SEC champs. Like last year they had a chance at it. This year, I mean, they were I think they started out the season at ranked number 5, if I believe, maybe 6. I think it was 5 though, and they lost to Florida State early, and they dropped down. Which Florida State's a really good team, and then they lose to Ole Miss. So I don't know if it might be defense. Looking at the score of Ole Miss, maybe their defense is struggling, because if you're letting up 55 by darts, the Ole Miss QB, then maybe that's why you're losing games, because their offense I know is explosive. I mean, it says it on the points, but I also know like Daniel's their quarterback. I mean, he was really good last year. He can run the ball, he can pass the ball. He's a very versatile guy. So it's definitely it's a little weird. LSU's lost 2 games. They can still win the SEC championship. They got enough on their schedule. I believe they still play Tennessee. I don't know if they play Georgia, but they still got some big games. I mean, almost every week in the SEC feels like it's a big game. So hopefully they can bounce back in the upcoming week. But so moving on to best games of the week. Number 12 Oklahoma versus number 3 Texas. It is the Red River rivalry in Dallas, Texas. It is probably the game of the week. And Oklahoma. I haven't watched a ton of them. I'm excited to watch them. I'm curious though if they have enough to pull off this upset against Texas. Texas has looked solid. They had that big win over Bama that everyone was watching and all that, and they just beat Kansas last week, and then they've had after Alabama, they had like 2 weeks before Kansas where they were like winning games, but they were making them really close. So I feel like Texas, and I feel like Texas is playing to like the opponents, like playing down to their opponents. I think it'll definitely be a close game, and it's the rivalry. Both of these teams, I mean, are going to be coming out firing. I think Oklahoma, it's a great chance for them to get the win. Um, but and again, I don't really know enough about Oklahoma. Like I haven't watched them. They kind of just snuck up. Like after Lincoln Riley left, like they kind of went into a slump. Spencer Rattler transferred and all that, and then they kind of were bad for 2 years. Now they're all of a sudden in a really big game this week. So I'm excited to see how good Oklahoma actually is, if they can keep it close or if Texas just blows the doors right off of them. So that'll be a fun game to watch. Another good game, great LSU, another tough week from number 23 LSU versus number 21 Missouri. Missouri is undefeated right now, so I don't know if they could keep it going. I it's at home. I think they could get this big win and keep the undefeated train going. But LSU, this is a great opportunity. You lost 2 games, but again, the SEC is full of competition. You can get this if you win this week. Like, I mean, I get it. Missouri's not like a Alabama or a big SEC football team, but like getting a win against a ranked Missouri or SEC team, even it's gonna get you boosted up in the rankings, and people will be like, "Oh, that's a good win." And it'll also help you for SEC championship. Like if they lose this game, they're not making it. On the flip side, Missouri, I mean, they're undefeated. They still have Georgia down the road, which will be a pretty big game if they keep winning. But they still have, I mean, they got SEC championship definitely, or hopes definitely for them, because I mean they're still undefeated. So I think it'll be a really good game. This could be a game of the week too. There's a lot of good games this week. But I feel like Missouri, I feel like they could get this win. I don't know. LSU, we'll see how their defense holds up. Another game, Kentucky got a big upset last week. So now they are ranked. So number 20 Kentucky versus number 1 Georgia. It is in Athens, so it is at Georgia. And Georgia had a little scare last week against Auburn. They were at Auburn. I get it. Tough environment. SEC, again, it's all competition. Even though Auburn's not ranked, it's still pretty good competition. But I think it could be a close game. I don't know. Kentucky, it's going to be tough to go into Georgia. I think they keep it close for the first half, and then the second half, Georgia kind of blows the doors open. Brock Bowers, if Kentucky can cover him, Kentucky's going to have a lot better of a day being able to stop Georgia, but it's tough to stop him. He's big, he's fast, he just finds the open spots in the field to help his quarterback. He can make moves, he can run over you, so he's a really good player. He went crazy in the second half against Auburn, and that's what playmakers do. And so I think he will probably have a big game. But if Kentucky can stop him, that'll be a great stop for Kentucky. But I think it'll be a tough game. I think it'll be close. It could be I think it could be close, honestly, all the way to the fourth quarter. Or maybe the fourth quarter it gets like Kentucky kind of falls off a little bit, but we'll see. I think it's gonna be a good game though. And then finally, um, Notre Dame's been on here a lot. Number 10 Notre Dame versus number 25 Louisville. It's at Louisville. I think Notre Dame should get a pretty good win here. I anticipate their offense hopefully can do pretty well this week. But and hopefully Sam Hartman can get going. But Louisville, I think they'll probably keep it close for maybe the first half. I think Notre Dame though will get a pretty good win, like by probably 2 or 3 touchdowns. So we'll move on to a quick pick for college football. Last week I was 13-3, so my total record is 113. Eli was 15-1 last week, and his total record is 97-16. So we're both pretty close. You just caught me by a couple games, so we're 3 games apart. But yeah, and he told me his picks, so I'll read out his picks and all that. So, but first game, Maryland versus number 4 Ohio State. He's got Ohio State, and I also have Ohio State. I think it's going to be a closer game in the first half. I think Ohio State will blow it open in the second half, but Maryland's 4-0, and they got Tua's brother as their quarterback. So, and he's been pretty good at Maryland, so I think it'll be kind of close. It'll be a good test for Ohio State and that defense again. And I hope Buckeyes Dolphins can get going. But yeah, we both got Ohio State. Number 12, Oklahoma versus number 3, Texas. Eli has a little bit of an upset. He's got Oklahoma winning the game, but he says it'll be a close game. I got Texas winning the game. I think it's gonna be a close game. I think it might be low scoring though. I think it could be a low scoring kind of game. I feel like the past couple red rivalry games, I feel like they've been really high scoring. There's like one a few years ago where it's like 63-55 or something. So I think it'll be low scoring though. I think both defenses will show up. But number 23 LSU versus number 21 Missouri. Eli's got Missouri. I got Missouri. I think they're going to stay undefeated, and I'm excited to see if Mizzou can get another win. Number 13 Washington State versus UCLA. We both got Washington State on this one. I think it'll be a little close because it's at UCLA, but Washington State gets the dub. Virginia Tech versus number 5 Florida State. Both of us have Florida State blowing V-Tech out. So I think it will not be close at all. It's at Florida State, and Florida State has looked really good so far. Number 11 Alabama versus Texas A&M. We both got Bama. I think it could be a little. I think it could be close in the first half at A&M. Another tough environment. But I think Bama will pull out in the second half. So Syracuse versus number 14 North Carolina. He's got North Carolina. I got North Carolina. Drake May. I think he's kind of a pretty good game. I will say Syracuse is not a bad team though. They're tough. Clemson beat them last week, but that was their first loss, and they were ranked last year. They were pretty good last year. So don't look over Syracuse. I think North Carolina, it could be a pretty good game. Number 20 Kentucky versus number 1 Georgia. We both have Georgia. Eli says it's going to be a close game. I agree with him. It is going to be a close game. So number 2 Michigan versus Minnesota. We both have the Wolverines winning that game. I think like every week the Wolverines will win the second half. They'll be closing the first. So number 10 Notre Dame versus number 25 Louisville. We both have Notre Dame winning. I think Notre Dame will win pretty easily, but we'll see. And Arkansas versus number 16 Ole Miss. Ole Miss I got winning. He does. Eli also has Ole Miss winning. I think Ole Miss will kind of blow out Arkansas. Georgia Tech versus number 17 Miami. We both have Miami winning this week, and I think Miami will beat for Georgia Tech pretty badly. Number 24, Fresno State versus Wyoming. We both have Fresno State winning. I don't know enough about Wyoming. I think it might be a little pretty close, but I'll take Fresno State with Eli. Number 15, Oregon State versus California. We both have Oregon State winning that game after the big win last week. I think they'll blow out California. And then Arizona versus number 9 USC. Eli's got an upset. He picked Arizona. I picked USC. I don't know what Eli's thinking. You'll have to ask him next week what his mindset is there, because Arizona is not good. If he gets that right, I'll be very impressed. I think Caleb Williams is going to go crazy all over Arizona's defense. So we'll see. We'll see if Eli can get that right. But moving on to the NFL, last but not least, we'll recap from last week. The Bills defeated the Dolphins 48-20. And everyone's like shocked because Miami just killed the Broncos the week before, like 76-21. And then this week they get killed by Buffalo. Now it was in Buffalo, but like everyone expecting like this was gonna be a big game, it's gonna be game of the week, and they get smoked. So I think part of it was the defense. I didn't watch the game. I don't get the Bills games. But the Dolphins I feel like are gonna I didn't watch the game. I don't know if they got it to like Tyreek Hill. I think Jalen Waddle might have been injured. I think he's been injured for a little while now. But I don't know if Tyreek Hill they got to him a bunch. The Bills defense is pretty good, and obviously Josh Allen had a really good game, which it was a great win for the Bills because the Bills kind of like started out a little slow, and they've had like some close games, and like people are like, oh, is this Bills team like actually still good? Like, can they win a Super Bowl? Can they make it to the playoffs? Can they win the AFC Championship? And I think that game was a big statement. It was a big statement for the Bills, and then it was like a little, is Miami good? Are they not? Like, what do we think about Miami? So, a little weird there. Eagles defeated the Commanders 34-31 in overtime. Eagles are still undefeated. It was a little scare for them. And I was going to discuss this with Eli. I said, are the Eagles still a Super Bowl team? I'll get my opinion. Obviously not Eli's. But I think they are. If I had to pick an NFC champion right now, I would probably pick the 49ers. I think the Eagles are still a really good team. I think defensively they lost a lot of guys, so I'm not as confident as I am on the defensive side of the ball. But I could still see them making I think they'll win the NFC East. I think they'll make a run in the playoffs. Not that I couldn't see them in the Super Bowl, but I feel like they still have some holes to fix in order to make it there. But good win for Philly. And then Chiefs defeated the Jets 23-20. Close, very close game. The Jets should have won. Zach Wilson fumbled at the end of the game, blew it. Patrick played very sloppy, had a bunch of random picks, didn't look great. And then Zach Wilson, he did fumble, but he actually looked like pretty good. Like he looked like he kind of knew the offense. Like everyone was like, well, they brought in Aaron Rodgers' offense, and now like they're putting Zach Wilson in Aaron Rodgers' offense. So like he's kind of like confused. I feel like people were saying, but I feel like he's kind of figured it out. Like there was a play that we always see Aaron Rodgers do, where he fakes the handoff and like tucks the ball under and then throws it out and had a wide open touchdown for Zach Wilson. We always see Aaron do that. So I feel like maybe Aaron's giving him some tips, but I think Zach Wilson's kind of like catching on. And I think Zach Wilson, they almost beat the Chiefs. It was a tough game, but I think I think they can string some wins together if he keeps playing pretty well. He played pretty well against the Chiefs D. and I know the Jets D is really good, and I'm gonna say he probably, if he puts up 24 to 28 points a game, I think they'll win because their defense is really, really good. So it was good to see that for Zach. So games of this week in the NFL: Chiefs versus Vikings. Can the Vikings get a big win? Because they have not looked so hot. It's in Minnesota. But the Vikings, like last year, they were very dominant, especially at the beginning of the year. And this year, they haven't looked great. Kirk and Justin, it hasn't all been there. And now they got to host the Chiefs. Now Patrick's got to prove that he's not going to turn over the ball and play all sloppy. But also, I'm not sure what to think of the Vikings. Like, it'd be a great win for Minnesota, and they desperately need this win. Because I think they're 1-3 right now, which is not good. And I think the Lions are in the winning the division. They're in third, I believe. So they can get a big win if they could beat the Chiefs. So moving on, this is probably biggest game of the week: Cowboys versus 49ers, rematch from last year's divisional. I'm really excited for this game. The two defenses that'll be playing this game: Micah Parsons, Nick Bosa. Like, it's Kurt Warner. Trayvon Diggs isn't there anymore. DeMarcus Lawrence. Like, it's gonna be awesome. Like, I'm super excited to see this defensive game. I know the offenses will be there. Brock Purdy. I'm excited to see McCaffrey, and we'll see Dak and CeeDee Lamb. But I think it's gonna be a defensive battle. I do think, though, not that Dak's a perfect QB, but I don't know if I'm over exaggerating, like saying but I think Brock is gonna throw some errant picks. Just with he's played the Cowboys defense actually, take that back. Oh yeah, he did. Yeah, I'm right, guys. Sorry, he did play the Cowboys defense, and they won in a low scoring game last year. It'll be low scoring again, I believe, this year. I think Brock will make some picks. Dak probably will too. I bet there'll be some turnovers. I bet it'll be low scoring, a lot of field goals. But I'm excited for this game. It's gonna be a great game this week. And then Packers versus Raiders. I believe it's a Monday night game. Yeah, Cowboys Sunday night, and then this is the Monday night game. Jordan Love hasn't looked that bad. I like what I'm seeing. He's a young quarterback. He's just getting his first start. Like, I feel like Packers fans are over exaggerating. They're like, oh my gosh. Actually, I believe they might be in first or second of the division. I know, or tied for first or second. But the Packers have not looked bad. Jordan Love has not looked bad. Like, he's made some plays, he's made some mistakes, but he's gonna learn. I mean, it's gonna be week 5 this week, so he'll learn on the way. But he's looked pretty good. And then the Raiders, Jimmy G, I think he's dealt with a couple injuries. Devontae Adams, though, facing his old team, so it'll be fun to see that. But before we move into quick pick, you're probably wondering, maybe you haven't even realized, but I'm wearing a Zeke jersey. The only reason I'm wearing this is because last week the Cowboys and Patriots played, and Zeke played with the Cowboys last couple of years, the past 6 or 7 years, and finally just revisited AT&T where he used to play. So that's the only reason I'm wearing it. I couldn't put on a Colts jersey because they lost. I couldn't put a Cubs jersey because we missed the playoffs, and the Buckeyes had a bye week. So I'll just put on Zeke jersey. But anyways, moving on to quick pick. Both me and Eli last week went 11-5. So our total, I am 40-24, and he is 39-25. So very, very close in the NFL quick picks. So Bears and Commanders. This is a brutal Thursday night game. Eli picked the Commanders, and I'm gonna go. I'll go Chicago. It's a brutal Thursday night game. I don't even know if terrible game. If you didn't watch the Bears last week, a good Good thing you didn't, because they blew a really big lead, like a 14-point lead in the fourth quarter. So, Titans versus Colts. Eli's got the Colts. I'm gonna pick the Titans. The Titans killed the Bengals last week. I know the Bengals haven't looked great, but I'm not having too much hope for Indy's team right now. So, Cowboys versus Niners. Eli picked the Cowboys. I'm gonna pick the 49ers. I'm gonna pick Brock Purdy. I trust Brock Purdy. I think he'll play pretty well. He'll make some mistakes again with Dak, but I think the defense will make some turnovers. I think you can see a lot of like pick sixes or scoop and scores. I think you see a lot of defensive turnovers on Sunday night. So, Jaguars versus Bills. This game is in London. The Jaguars have spent actually the whole week in London. They played last week in London. They play this week in London. They finally go home. Eli's got the Bills. I got the Bills winning. I think it'll be a close game. The Jaguars will keep it close. Texans versus Falcons. Me and Eli both have the Texans winning. CJ Stroud has looked really well. I believe last game he was like 80% completion rate, 2 touchdowns, no picks, and like 310 yards maybe. He hasn't thrown a pick all year. He's had 6 touchdown passes. He played pretty well. He's like 1,200 yards, so he's looked pretty good so far. So, but we both got the Texans. Panthers versus Lions. We both picked Detroit to win this game. I like Jared Goff. I do think Bryce Young will play a pretty good game, but Aiden Hutchinson will get after him, which I feel bad for Bryce because he doesn't have an O-line and he's really small. So, but we both got Detroit. Giants versus Dolphins. We both got the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins will bounce back, and the Giants did not look good the other night. They just offensively, like with Daniel Jones, just nothing looking in sync. Like especially just turnovers. Like they're just handing the ball to the defense. So both got Miami. Saints versus Patriots. We both got the Patriots. I think Bill Belichick will get something strung up on defense, and hopefully Mac Jones can play pretty well. So, Ravens versus Steelers. We both got the Ravens winning this game. I think it'll be close game for sure, but the Steelers' offense is brutal. The only way I believe the only way the Steelers win this game is if their defense gets some defensive touchdowns. But I think Lamar will make some plays, and yeah, we both got Baltimore. Eagles versus Rams. We both got the Eagles winning. Rams came off a big win last week in overtime, same as the Eagles. And then the Eagles will get a big win now. Bengals versus Cardinals. Eli picked the Cardinals. I'm going to still trust in Joe Burrow, so I'm going to go with the Bengals. Either way, I don't know Josh Dobbs or Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow needs to step it up. Their offenses look brutal. I get why Eli picked Cardinals because Bengals have not looked good, but I'll give one more week for Joe to prove himself. So, Jets versus Broncos. We both picked the Jets. I think Zach Wilson will have a good game this week. I'm excited to see him hopefully beat the Broncos. Chiefs versus Vikings. We both got the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs. I think they might roll over Minnesota. I don't know. Not really sure how I feel about Minnesota still. Kirk Cousins, they got to have a big game offensively, and Justin Jefferson. And then finally, last game, Packers versus Raiders. We both have Green Bay winning that game, so I think Jordan Love will have a pretty good game against the Raiders D. So yeah, that is it on episode 38 of the Final Seconds. Hopefully we have Eli back next week. Hopefully it's not a week-long sickness. But yeah, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you guys next week.
I'm Mr. Body Catcher, Slaughter Gang Soul Snatcher. Ain't no regular F-150, this a rapper. No capper, street.
Script, what is that? Huh, that was interesting. Why? Where do I? Oh, I'm an idiot.